The Garden Report, is powered by Prize Picks, the exclusive daily fantasy partner of the CLNS Media Network.
The issue that I had more than anything else with the Celtics was it goes back to something we've talked about before, and that is playing with your food. I mean, you go back. They had a
the over-under on that, by the way, tonight was 7.5 times that would be said, playing with your food, because you knew they would do that tonight, right?
Yeah, you did. And, during one of the timeouts, Joe Mazzulla was talking to them, and he basically was saying you need to close out better. You need to close out like you want to close out. And right after that, they gave up an open three, or they gave up a lightly contested. It seemed like it took them until the second half to actually start really defending Cleveland and respecting Mook Morris and respecting Sam Merrill and all those other guys that don't really play, but are only playing because they're so just battered. And that's there's a party that thinks, okay, maybe they're just playing down to the competition, and the better the next opponent, the better they'll be. But to Jimmy's point, they're going to play just a tapped out Indiana team or a tapped out Knicks team that's, physically speaking, aren't going to be nearly as fresh as the team that they'll face if they get past them out west.
Yes, exactly.
Right, here comes the take quake,
the hot cake take.
Yeah, that needs to be in a tournament. We need to get a tournament.
The hot cake take of the night. No, listen. Here's what I'm exhausted by. I'm exhausted by the next 4 days of conversation, 5 days of conversation. What we're allowed to say, what you're not supposed to say. People telling fans how they're supposed to act and feel. They're in the conference finals. You're supposed to. It's a big deal. The numbers and Jalen and Jason making them great. Awesome. You're not allowed to say that the teams that they beat were bad and injured. You're not allowed to say it. Not allowed to. Can't talk about that, okay?
Nope, you're just a hater.
Can't say the games have been boring. Can't say the games have been easy. Dude, they're in the conference finals. Shut up. I'm exhausted by this conversation already. I'm exhausted by it. And I know it's coming. I don't want to be on either side of it. That's just what it's going to be. It's going to just
Twitter.
It's going to kill me. What did you think they were going to do other than get to the conference finals? Was there another acceptable alternative? Joe Mazzulla would have been fired like 7 minutes ago if this was 4-1 Cleveland, or if they lost this series. Jaylen Brown would have been traded in the offseason. Wick would have come in literally and just blown up the locker room. Of course they made the conference finals. We know it. That was the plan. This is now, the season now officially begins. Game one of the Eastern Conference Finals, and honestly, possibly not even game one of the finals until something is real. And that's it. So I'm sorry. Yes, they made it. They were supposed to make it. The back and forth is going to be exhausting over the next few days, but now it's serious. Now it's real. Now, again, you're going to face an opponent in the Knicks that's going to put up a fight. Yes. I'm not even on it. I'm just saying this is how it's going to go over the next few days.
So let me say this.
Let's just skip ahead. Okay, let's go. This is all preseason. This is all preseason action. All of it. Meaningless. Okay? All of it.
So I agree with you. I agree with you too. I pretty much agree with you in that sense, John. I know what you're saying. Where I wanted things to be different was, I knew the opponents were going to be weak. That's why I wanted to see the Celtics, I think, dominate more in the game. And when you look at the series, okay, it's pretty hard to say they didn't. 4-1 and 4-1.
Subscribe for these late podcasts. Yep.
It was a pretty dominant, series win in both cases. But if you watch the series in the games, there was a number of times within those games where Celtics were just not playing dominant basketball. And I felt like even though these are quote unquote playoff teams, that Cavs roster the last couple games was not a playoff team. That Heat roster for a number of those games was not a playoff team. They're without their best players in both situations. The Cavs waved the white towel before they even showed up tonight. And credit to the players who did play for making it a game and keeping it interesting. And playing with your food is a good way to put it. The thing about that is I feel like when it comes to where they are right now, is it playing with their food or is it they just don't know how to like
right, they don't know how to eat.
They don't, yeah, right. Yeah.
But is this food?
Is it playing with their food? Like, Or are we sure that the food is there? Like in this situation, like now we're getting to the point now.
Testing my skills on Prize Picks this season is the most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. If you have the skills, you can turn $10 into $1,000 with just a few taps. Use the code CLNS for the first deposit match up to $100. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy.
They're playing with their food, Jimmy, because how dominant they were in the regular season. I mean, it would be one thing if they just had a pretty good. But Jimmy, but the things that you do in the regular season in terms of execution, in terms of your style of play, that stuff is transferable. And so I'll just give you an example. If let's say the Celtics wind up playing the Knicks and they win that one in 5 games, and let's say the 4 wins by an average of like 27 points, would anyone be shocked by that? No. And the reason you wouldn't be shocked is because they have shown the ability to absolutely decimate teams when they're locked and loaded. And we just haven't seen that. And
but they do it so often, Sherrod, where it's like, are they really playing with their food, or is this just who they are?
Well, this is the difference, I would say, this year, Jimmy, is that they, in the past, they've played with their food so much where they've actually lost multiple games in the process. This go around, they lost 1 game in each series. They're the first team to get to the conference finals of all the teams in the NBA. They're not quite fully educated on to how to not play with your food, but they're definitely a little bit more, I think, educated than they were a year ago on that. Like, for example, if this were last year's team, we're probably looking at a game 6 in Cleveland. And we probably would have saw 6 games in Miami. So.
I think it's an interesting question Jimmy poses. Like, Is it playing with your food? I don't know. You know, like, I don't know.
Okay, he's leaving. He'll be back, I guess.
To address it, I don't know if it's playing with their food either. I don't know exactly what it is. I don't know what else to call it.
Right.
It's they clearly know. I mean, you know, I tweeted it semi-seriously, semi-jokingly. It literally took 3 minutes of serious basketball to put this game away in the 4th quarter. They're like, all right, let's ratchet up the D, get some stops, move the ball a little bit on offense instead of just everybody standing around and bang, 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 14-point game, and it was over. That was it.
Yeah.
That's it.
And that ball movement that you talked about, John, don't just allow the ball movement to be on the perimeter. You know, you might actually have guys who are like literally under the rim for layups. They had at least 3 of those in the 4th quarter. And those are plays that I think over the course of a game, those plays are going to be there if you're seriously trying to hunt those down. And it just seemed that, you know, Tatum had a couple where he literally, you know, just got in a tight spot in the corner, and rather than swinging up top to Jalen, he felt like Drew Holiday for a freaking layup or Al Horford for a layup. Those are the plays that they have to get better. They have to take advantage of those moments more than they did in this series.
Yeah, it's just, it all comes down to, I mean, it's so funny. Like, the whole thing is hilarious. If the Celtics were playing elite level, high level basketball right now, eviscerating teams, you'd be talking about how they're playing elite level basketball and just tearing teams apart. Who's stopping this team? If in the first 2 rounds they played incredibly competitive series against incredibly talented teams, you know, that are high level with all of their stars and all of their players, and they're winning these tight games, you'd be like, wow, these 2 rounds have really battle tested them for the later rounds. So if the complete opposite happens, are you not allowed to talk about it? That's kind of what I mean, is like, they just futzed around a little bit and got there because they knew they could. It was obvious and automatic that that's what was happening. So you talk about what's happening. If they were playing awesome, you'd be like, this team is a freaking machine right now. If they look like they're just kind of, I don't know, let's start and stop. And, you know, then there's concern, like, are you just going to flip the switch when you're playing a better team in the conference finals because now you're in the conference finals? That's what everybody, all season long, it's like, what are they going to do in the playoffs? They're going to take it seriously or not? I don't know. Maybe. Probably still good enough to beat the Knicks, maybe even without Porzingis. So again, I don't know. You're going to get to the finals before you're like, what are they going to do? I'm still not sure. You know, I'm not certain based on anything I've seen, regular season or playoffs. It's still kind of a mystery. What are they going to do when they get into, I guess, probably the only difficult, meaningful series they'll have, which is going to be most likely in the finals? I don't know.
Right. But you know what? We kind of saw this coming during the regular season when you start looking at the top 4, top 5 teams in the league, and the majority of them were out west. I mean, if you really seriously look at the top 5 teams, Boston is probably the only team in the East that has a solidified position among that group. So they were going to have to address that whole, you haven't really played anyone, and yet you're here in the finals. Finally, you're going to be tested. They were going to have to deal with that regardless. But to your point, John, they haven't been as dominant as you would expect the team who had the kind of regular season they are. And that's to me, that's the issue.
Because that was it. They dominated in the regular season.
Right.
What I missed.
Their winning margins are large because, again, these teams are beat to shit. They're completely dismantled. I mean, how much more can Cleveland invented a guy tonight to have him not dress? Like, who the hell is Porter? He's not a real person. Even he was inactive. Like, it's like the whole, you can't possibly, did they even have 5?
Damn.
Take the guesswork out of buying NBA tickets at Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem the code CLNS and get $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices, guaranteed.
Hey, Bobby Manning here. If you made it this far, you probably enjoyed this video, so subscribe, turn on notifications, and check out our social media platforms at Celtics CLNS